And it's easier to understand Central's history once you hear about the Methodist Church. And I'm going to start with the early establishment of Central. We were organized in 1866 as Clark Chapel Methodist Episcopal Church. And this was a difficult time in our country. The Civil War had ended the year before. President Abraham Lincoln had been assassinated, and the Reconstruction period was underway as a result of the aftermath of the Civil War. The church was located in the Atlanta Summerhill community, and it was named after Bishop Davis Clark. Bishop Clark was a white man from the North who was appointed the first president of the Freedmen's Aid Society. Does anyone know what the Freedmen's Aid Society was? Well, this was a group of individuals within the church that were charged with trying to help former slaves establish themselves after the war ended, particularly to help them in their spiritual growth, as well as to help them to become educated, because many of those ex-slaves didn't know how to read and write. So it was very important to help blacks so that they could become, part of society, productive members of society. Bishop Clark's picture is on the mural. Yeah, and we'll talk about the mural, but yes, that is one of the few pictures we could find of Bishop Clark. Clark was also tasked with trying to reunite the northern and southern branches of the Methodist Church, as Julie just talked about. And he was also, he also founded a primary school at the church that later became Clark University, then Clark College, and as we know it today, Clark Atlanta University.
J.W. Lee did that, not Clark.
I'm sorry?
J.W. Lee did that, not Clark.
Okay. Not Clark.
J.W. Lee was the one who started the school in 1869 that became Clark. The school was named after Bishop Clark, but the Methodist minister by the name of James Wesley Lee was actually started the school.
But it was at the church?
Yeah.
Okay.
J.W. Lee started, he and his wife, Lila.
Right. And one of the departments within the school, the theology department, decided to break away from Clark and establish their own institution, which later became the Gallman School of Theology. That's a part of the ITC, Interdenominational Theological Center, if you're familiar with that. Due to its original hue and shape, the church was often nicknamed by the community as the Little Red Church, or the Little Red Cross. And why do you think we settled in Summerhill community? At that time, it was a thriving area for blacks. You had a lot of churches and schools and homes that were being built. Atlanta was a major transportation hub with the railroad, and you had a lot of industries that were attracted to blacks, such as the Atlanta Steel Company. Some of you here in this room may have family or friends that work for the Atlanta Steel Company. Yeah. So it was quite attractive to blacks. He also, Bishop Clark, established a church for the blacks, but he also established another church for the whites, and that was Lord Street Methodist Episcopal Church. And in an attempt to try to merge the two groups together, the blacks and whites, we moved to our second home on what was then Lord Street at Central Avenue now, and we became Lord Street Methodist Episcopal Church.
And question, comment, Bishop Haven was the one who was behind that.
Bishop Haven?
Bishop Haven, yes, Haven.
Okay. Reverend Gray has done some research in the last few years, so he's had some additional information since our original documentation of the church was completed. But Bishop Clark was still...
He was dead then.
He was dead when that happened. Okay. and that was in 1875. We passed out a map here that kind of shows you where our homes were located. If you want to take a look at that, it kind of helps to have a visual of what it looked like then. And again, our first home was down on Fraser Street. And then we moved up to downtown Atlanta on Central Avenue, Lloyd Street at that time. And then to our current location here on Mitchell Street. And these were popular areas for blacks to live in during that time. Of course, Summerhill, and then you also had Auburn Avenue, 4th Ward District that was popular for blacks, as well as now the Vine City area. Now, even though the blacks and whites were worshiping in the same building, the conditions were segregated. Now, some accounts say that blacks had to worship from the balcony of the church. We had to always sit at the back of the church. And some accounts say that the two groups actually had two different services, that they never did really worship together. Around 1897, because of financial reasons and low attendance, the white members decided to leave the church and sold it to the black congregants, which they did. And they actually first moved to a smaller church on Marietta Street in Atlanta. And I understand from Reverend Gray's research, they actually ended up moving again to Ponce de Leon Avenue.
Yes.
And there's a church where it's actually a part of the Savannah College of Arts and Design now, where they had service there for a while.
Across the street from Savannah College. The
old church that stands there.
The old church, it's a Presbyterian church now, but it used to be the, what's that restaurant where they had the monks in there? Abbey Restaurant.
Yeah.
That's where the white folks left.
Right, but that's the same location as Savannah Arts and College. Abbey.
Savannah Arts is on the other side. Abbey still uses a church.
Okay.
Did they still consider themselves Methodists?
They closed.
They separated?
They went out of business
Yes, they eventually dissolved
in
that church.
1939.
So what was their denomination?
They were Methodists.
They were still Methodists.
Yeah, until they disbanded.
Okay. Some of the most notable religious and social events were held at Lloyd Street Church over the years. Because of rapid growth and development in the area, the city changed the name of Lloyd Street to Central Avenue. And as a result of that change, the members voted and decided to change the name of the church now to Central Avenue Methodist Episcopal Church. The church's leadership and community outreach remained unrivaled. There were some monumental events that happened earlier during that time. We had the creation of the NAACP. The first black bishops were elected into the Methodist Episcopal Church, and you had your first woman that was granted local preacher status. I want to back up a little bit and talk about the early around 1906. Atlanta had what was called the race riots. This was a 2 or 3 day event where many blacks were killed, injured, and there was a lot of property destruction. And Central Avenue Church showed strong leadership during that time and comfort to the community, and encouraged everyone to continue to come to school and work and church, but also warned that they probably needed to stay off the streets of the city after dark. So a very difficult time. This was not highly publicized here in the States, but you heard a lot about it in a lot of the European countries. And a part of that was because mainly the poor whites felt that blacks needed to be reminded of their place in society. We also, around 1911, I believe, we had the President of the United States came to the Central Avenue Church. And this, you can imagine, was an exciting time for the church. He came to address what was called the Southern Commercial Congress. And this was a group of businessmen, mainly white. You had politicians and educators as part of that group too, that were concerned about the image of the South, particularly after the race riots, and how they could attract businesses back to Atlanta. All the eyes of the world in the United States were on Atlanta during that time. So we also had many dignitaries that attended those events. Not only the President of the United States, we had then Governor Woodrow Wilson of New Jersey that was there, and then also Theodore Roosevelt. So a very exciting time in the life of the church. Around that time, we had the Great Depression, and Central members sacrificed and took odd jobs and did what they needed to do to support their families and also to give back to the church. And actually, even with the Great Depression, Central continued to grow